Welcome to my YouTube video. Here I would like to address one of the questions I've been asked a bunch since I've posted my videos, and that question is, how do I keep track of my miles? Now, it is important for me to mention that what works for me might not work for you, and everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. And then with that being said, let's get right into the video. Now, there are plenty of ways to keep track of your mileage for various reasons. The reason I track my miles is for the taxes, and that is what I like to discuss here. I do suggest to talk to a CPA for more detailed information on what you should do, as your case may be different from mine, and all I'm sharing here are some of the ways you could track the miles and expenses for use later. Now, to my understanding, there are a couple of ways to do write-offs at the end of the year. Mileage, which is the standardized deduction, or, and I mean the big emphasis on or, you can't write off both of those, the itemized deductions. On an itemized deduction, you would write off things like gas, insurance, depreciation, things like that. Now, to my knowledge, in 2021, the miles count as a 56-cent standardized deduction for each mile the vehicle is used for your business. When you're using the vehicle, your costs are obviously not just gas, but things like maintenance, depreciation, and repairs, not limited to those as well. Now, for some, miles might not even be the best way to write off. Again, contact your CPA for that. But with that said, here's what I have for you. For number one, I decided to put the most obvious one. And the easiest way to do this is just to get a notepad or create an Excel document and just write it down. The miles you get in, the miles you get out. Now, the pros of this method is that it's a simple way to keep track of things as well as it's free. However, I do believe that it's easy to lose data this way, and it's fairly time-consuming method, since you do have to take time to remember to take down that data, and if you don't, you might not track the right amount of miles, which could cost you a pretty penny on your taxes. Now, I like this method because it's simple yet very effective, and it does require you to do more calculations in your head on a day-to-day basis, as well as to keep it in the back of your head that you gotta write it down. But since it does not cost you anything to do it, I am a fan of this method and using it as my backup for my main method, which brings me to my next point: use an app. Now, this is not the route I am using anymore, but this is the most popular way nowadays to keep track of the mileage. People like it because it is more on the background side of things, meaning they have to do little to no work on a daily basis. Usually the app would track it in the background, and at the end of the trips, you just need to mark the trips as personal or business, which is pretty self-explanatory. However, the apps don't always track it well, and you could never know if the app is actually in the middle of tracking, and that could still cost you a lot of money on your taxes. Now, another big negative is that you usually have to pay for the app that works, and in case of an app that works but it's free, usually they try to upsell you on a paid version and they restrict the amount of trips that they can track. And I have a lot of experience with these, and the one that I used to be okay to use, and I'm okay to mention it, is QuickBooks Mileage Tracker, which is inside of the QuickBooks subscription, because it actually worked the majority of the time I was using it, but not without hiccups anyways. Now, it's not all bad, because at the end of the day, when it all works, it does require almost no work from you, and it would be an easier option in comparison to writing it down yourself, since you won't have to remember to start tracking it and to stop tracking it, as well as it would have all the info you need in just one place automatically. Overall, I myself don't use it, but it does not mean that it's a bad option, and it is relatively inexpensive when it works well, and is efficient way to keep track of miles when it works well. Now, this is the one that I lean towards suggesting since I rely heavily on it, and as always, this might not be the best option in your case, and that is for you to decide. And I use one of these. This here is an OBD2 tracker for your vehicle's miles and a couple of other interesting metrics. It simply plugs into your vehicle's diagnostic port and reads all the data from the moment you turn it on and even after you turn it off. Now, I like it because it's the most reliable out of everything that I have ever tried. Not only does it show you the trips, it can also track diagnostic data, and if you have a check engine light, it can tell you what's causing that check engine light to come on, just like any other OBD2 scanner would do. It also shows you the location of your vehicle on the map in case you went out with your friends and maybe don't remember where you parked your vehicle. Or if you let your friend borrow your vehicle, you can see where it is as long as it's in the network coverage. And another nice feature of my device, that it has track of the amount of gas that the vehicle used in the period of time that it was operating. It's nice to have that, since you can do a more accurate calculation for how much fuel you would end up spending while delivering your Uber Eats or driving the passenger. Now, as always, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it tends to be a bit more expensive option, as the tracker itself could run you a couple of $100s. If I remember correctly, this one was $150. And after that, you still have to pay for the data plan, which in my case is $10 a month from Verizon. And it's a pretty penny to pay, but it works best for my case scenario. And as I'm sort of biased on this option, I'd let you decide if you like this option. I think it's also important to mention that you can have a device that is not plug and play, just like this one, but a hardwired device, which is even more expensive, but does not do tracking job any better. Rather than it's harder to get rid of if your vehicle gets stolen, but we won't get really into that here. Now, as we have considered the option that I consider more on the regular side of things, I cannot not mention this one. You could just get a dedicated vehicle where you would not have to do any mileage tracking separately, since all the mileage would be as your business mileage. It is easier to keep everything organized, and you don't put miles on your personal vehicle. This option could also have a nice taxable deduction, but talk to your CPA. And it could end up being cheaper overall to just get another vehicle. However, it could end up being a more expensive option in your case, since the upfront cost could be huge. And I would still talk to a CPA to see if this is the right option for you. Now, for myself, this isn't the best case, hence I don't have a separate vehicle, but in some cases, it could be an amazing option. Now, this brings me to my last option. Obviously, the case of not even tracking your miles and tracking the expenses instead. Now, I do advise that you still keep track of your mileage even if you're tracking expenses, because you could compare the deductions at the end of the year, and in case of miles versus itemized, you might end up having a better tax bill with the second option. Now, if you do keep track of just the expenses, it is straightforward here, since all you do is just keep track of all the actual spending, like maintenance costs, gas, repairs, etc. Yet it could end up costing you more on a tax bill if your mileage deduction is greater than your itemized deduction. And in my case, since I drive so many miles, I get a better deduction by just writing off the mileage. It could also be hard to write off certain expenses, but I'm not an expert on such matters, so contact your CPA here. Now, you never know which one is better until you track the expenses and compare them to your miles, so I would just track both. Now, I personally track miles and the expenses. I use a wire tracker as well as writing down miles in my Excel document, and I keep receipts for all my actual expenses. At the end of the year, miles end up being better for me since there are just so many miles. And if you want to get the same tracker, I have a Verizon Hum. I don't have any referral or discount code links for this, but I do have an Uber referral link down below if you would like to try it out for yourself. And now, as you see, it is not as simple as the best case is blank, enter whatever is the best case scenario. But I do hope that my video helps to at least clear up some misunderstandings and helps you understand what you could do better. As always, if you have any questions, you can leave them down below, and I will do my best to answer each and every single one of them. Please leave a like for this video if you got anything useful for yourself, and subscribe to my channel for any future business related content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.